Welcome to Black and White Table Talk, real talk behind the whistle. Today, we're joined by Carlos Rodriguez, one of the most influential voices in volleyball, because he sits in a role most people never understand, see. It's the assigner seat. Carlos assigns at the highest levels, including the SEC, and he sees the sport from a rare angle. Standards, evaluations, crew building, and what it takes for officials to advance. This episode is behind the curtain look at how officiating pipelines are built, why officials plateau, what retention really requires, and how we can create respectful environments that protect the game. Welcome, Carlos. Thanks for being on the show today.
Hey, you are welcome. And I'm going to just share this story. So
Hmm.
we were a few minutes into this little podcast,
Oh my
and
God.
oops, someone forgot to hit the record button.
Yeah,
But this is
I
a
did.
prime example, right, of our officiating world because how do you deal with situations that happen,
Yeah.
right? I could have been a not nice person, said, "Hey, I'm done. I've already spent 10 minutes." But the
Did you?
reality is how you choose to
5 minutes.
react to situations. A magical 5 minutes. But right, that is huge part of what we do.
Yeah.
So, and it's all about how you choose to take that and move on for it. But I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks, Carlos. And I want to get into that a little bit more about mistakes and things like that we as officials make, and how you as assigners kind of see those things. So hopefully we'll have time to discuss a lot of those different things that happen in match, because those
Five
are things
minutes
that
less. I'm just saying, 5 minutes
well,
less. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just
I
kidding.
can't afford you, Carlos. So
I'm
I
just
do
kidding.
appreciate you being here. So would you tell me a little bit about your? I call it a resume, Carlos. So and the conferences you assigned, and I know you've got some roles with USAV. Would you explain those for all of us?
Sure, by all means. So back in the day when I went to school at the University of Texas at Austin, that's how I started officiating. I met a very influential person to this day still, Glenn Litsky, who has since passed. Um, but I took a PE class and then I got into coaching for a couple years with him, and that's where I started officiating some 30 some odd years ago. So the sport has truly been very beneficial to me. It's allowed me to do a lot of things. I've had every national rating that USA Volleyball has to offer, a national beach that I've retired, a national indoor, a national scorer. I've had PABO's national rating as well, which I retired last December. And so, no, I've truly been very fortunate in what I've been allowed to do, where I've gone from coast to coast. And you asked about the conferences. And of course, I have a small little consortium of 11 conferences, the SEC being the largest. And then I have the ASUN, the Ohio Valley, the Southland, the WAC, which is turning into the United Athletic Conference. Those are my Division One schools. And then I have three Division Two, the Lone Star, the Peach Belt, and the Great American. One Division Three, American Southwest, and two more. I have an NAIA, the Red River, and my JUCO conference is Region 14. So 11 leagues. I used to be coast to coast, but now, because of all the switches and where people are going, I'm pretty much Texas. I have a little bit of New Mexico, a few schools, Division two schools in New Mexico, all the way to the East Coast. So that is predominantly my geography. So, and I do host many roles. And so this is my fifth year with the SEC. When I received that position as a coordinator, I was told I could not officiate collegiately anymore. That has broken my heart. But with everything, there's a trade-off. So, but I still do high school. I just finished 8 years in December as the president. I said, praise the Lord, thank you, Jesus. But I'm the chair of the officials assembly for USA Volleyball. I'm also on the coaching mentor team for USA Volleyball as well, and have done that for almost the majority of my officiating career, which I truly enjoy.
Wow. Lots of different roles, lots of different responsibilities. Gives you, and the officiating and coaching also give you a total different, I guess, a total 360 of the sport, right?
For sure. Because you see, I still officiate, as I say, on Tuesdays for high school because I do like to officiate. Because if I tell you I need to do something, I don't care what it is. If I can't do it myself, I'm like, well, that's kind of hard to believe, right? And I will tell you, I get grief mostly from the people at home about you still officiate. I was like, bless your heart, just because I can officiate better doing it just a few times and you do it all year, that is not my fault. But again, it is all about getting better at the end of the day. And I do want to share, we shared it in the last one. Um, but the reality is no one, and I repeat, no one is bigger than the game, right? I've been very fortunate, like I said, but if something were to happen to me today, there would be someone to pick up my spot, right? So, and when I first started 30 some odd years ago, that was not a statement that I believed, right? I wholeheartedly
Yeah.
like Carlos is great, blah, blah, blah. But the
Yeah.
reality is I'm just a player in this big game, and we should all want to give back. And ultimately, like for me on the officiating side, is to make officials better.
Yeah. Yeah, that really has become a big mission and mantra for me also, Carlos. In any way that I can, I just want to support all of sports really. I do multiple sports and I just want to give back as much as I can. So it's so great to hear that from you. And I believe it starts from the top. So we've got a great group of people here and in Georgia. So I'm very fortunate and Texas is very fortunate to have you. What does an assignment or a day look like for you? Do you start with the largest? Do you start with the SEC and kind of is
By
it
all
best?
means.
Carlos, is it best match gets best officials, or do you try to position people to stretch them, or how do you go about that assigning process at that level?
So of course I do start with the SEC and then I branch my way down. I try to do all my Division One first and then continue after there. But just because you're the best referee doesn't make you the best fit for the best match, right?
Interesting.
Because what if the coach doesn't like Carlos, right? Or Kai or whoever, right? So there's way many pieces that come involved. And the longer someone does it, they realize like, hey, Carlos and Kai are a bad fit and they should not officiate for whatever reason, right?
Right.
Because at the end of the day, what are we? Human beings.
Yes.
And you can never change the human being elements of officiating, right? Someone's going to do something or there's going to be something and you can't change that human element. I can change your mechanics, right? I can change like, hey, you need to think about ball handling different, or you need to think about your interaction with people, but I cannot change your fundamental being, right? And I think for a lot of officials, myself being included, in my younger days, I'm like, why didn't I get that, right? And so people believe that it's a personal thing, right? And of course, all assignments are personal, right? Let's get past that. But there are way more factors involved than just two people, right? How many times has that individual been to a school? Does that school really like them, right? Because if a coach tells me I never want to see Carlos at my site, why would I ever assign Carlos to that site? Because what good is that going to do? No matter what you do, they will find faults. You say hello, they didn't like the way you talk to them, right? So there's a lot of pieces, and the longer one assigns, one realizes that, hey, even though I'd like Carlos for that match, he is not a good fit for that. And I do not do anything that's going to cause me more stress, right? Because why would I want to put someone there only to get a call the next day or even that night from a coach like, hey, blah, 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 and then going back and see nothing happened. But I'm not putting people in positions that I do not believe they will be successful for.
Interesting. So I know coaches they evaluate us on after every single match, right? So
Correct.
so how I mean, do you run out of officials if a coach says I don't want so and so here? How do you keep track of all that also?
So Spotfoul, which is the assigning platform I use, which is belongs to the SEC. I say thank you, Jesus, for them because they allow me to keep all 11 of my leagues in one platform. Uh, but the reality is, so when I took one of my Division two conferences, um, it was a weekly call at the very beginning. I don't like this person. Next week, I don't like this person. Third week, and so I finally said to the coach, I'm like, well, who do you like? Right? I mean, I'm sending you quality people, and if you don't like them, who am I going to send them to you? And so that first year, I broke my golden rule. I've been with the
Okay.
conference for some time, and I broke my golden rule because I do not change assignments unless the world has ended and that coach cannot live with you. I did not change my assignments, but I broke that golden rule for a coach, and it only came back to bite me because he did not like the replacements. So now Carlos has a new magical rule. If for some reason the coach cannot live with a person, right, you can pay their match fee and I will get you two more. And in my 23 years now as a Division I coordinator, only one time has a school taken me up on that offer and said, nope, I don't want Carlos. I'll pay his match fee. Please give me someone else. Because one funny thing is, when money is involved, it's a whole different story. But I do have serious conversations with coaches because I do like that side, because we as officials do not get to experience that side, right? You get a meet and greet, you can say hi for a few seconds, but as a coordinator, I have a whole different interaction with them, right? And my job is to do the best for the leagues and to make sure our matches are officiated fairly and for the best of the program overall.
Yeah. So, I mean, I mean, when the coach says, "Hey, I don't like Kaya," do you go back and watch that match, or I mean, is it something that you try to say? You have a dialogue with them and say, "Well, what did Kaya do, or what did
So
why
in
don't you
every
want it back?"
situation, there are two stories, right? And somewhere in the middle lies the truth. Sometimes you can achieve that truth, and other times are like, were these two individuals at the same match? Because I am confused. Now, in this day and age, there is footage, 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 and more footage. Um, I will go look to, like, if coach said blah blah blah, I'll like, okay, let me go see what I can find. Right. But then I'll also ask the official, I'm like, hey, how did that match go last night? Were there any issues? And the only thing that truly ever concerns me is when they're so far apart that I can never make it match in the middle, right? And the reality is, raise your hand if you've never had a bad match, right? It's a
Right.
part of the game, and we hope and pray that it doesn't happen. But the reality is,
Yeah.
it does happen, and it's how we move on from that, how we get better, and what we learn from that, right?
So as an official, would I know if that coach doesn't like me, or would you just?
Nope, you would not on my end, because I cannot break the trust. I have to have the trust of the rep. I mean, excuse me, the coaches as well,
Yeah.
right? But the reality is, if something happens, you probably won't see that coach next year because it's not a good fit, and it's just
Yeah.
bad for everybody. Because no matter what you do on the word hello, they're not liking you, and that's the human element, right? We cannot change that because the reality is, and I can tell you from my officiating days, I went to one school. I don't care what I did for the coach. He was having a bad day. And so I'm like, and you have to learn to deal with that and as a referee, you have to be okay that you don't see that school, right? Because the reality is, I never wanted conflict, right? I wanted a nice, smooth match,
Right.
ideally in three, because I don't get paid extra for sets 4 and 5.
Right.
That's just bonus opportunity, right? But I want it to be good for everyone. And I don't want to go into a hostile environment because now I'm having to work even harder to figure out whatever the issue the coach is having or not having that day.
Yeah. So for me, as an official that wants to grow and learn, how do I get better from whatever, like, if you believe that, well, if the coach is valid in their assessment, am I getting that type of feedback? Like, hey, the coach said that, you said this, or, this offended them, or, this call you made was totally wrong. You know what I mean?
Right.
Like, is
And
that,
by
yeah,
all means. And so if it's something of substance, we will discuss it.
yeah,
I'm like, hey, how was your ball handling last night? I've been told you missed several back row attacks, and I'll tell you if I've looked at it or not looked at it, right?
yeah,
And the other thing with challenges, right? That's probably one of the biggest areas for improvement as an official. We need to be better with challenges.
yeah.
Um, but yes, if there is something of substance that I believe you need to know about, I'll be like, hey, what happened? I've been told this. Can you tell me what your side of it is? Again, somewhere in there lies the truth, and that's what my job is, to get the truth, and make sure you, as the official, you either A, did it right, or B, didn't, and what can we do to make you better as an official?
Yeah, at the SEC level, I mean, does it happen a lot there too, where coaches are like, I would prefer not to see Kaya. I mean, I'm not there. You know what I mean? Do they?
No. So the reality is, just more is at stake for them, right? And I don't know if that's the right choice of words, but
I get it.
it's a bigger stage. right? And so, do mistakes happen? By all means. Are they fewer? Yes. And so, if something is um, big, then yes, we need to address that so it doesn't happen again. Because the reality is, sometimes you have one-offs, they happen, you deal with it, and you move on, right? Because the reality is, I'm not going to hold something against you. Now, something happens in a match, and I don't care what league it is, and I think it needs to be addressed, and I will talk to you. I'm like, hey, blah, blah, blah. But if there's a pattern, like this happens on a Tuesday, and then 2 weeks later it happens on a Wednesday, and then the next day it happens, now we have a pattern that is going to cause me concern, and we need to do something to make it better for you, and more importantly, better for me, right? Because if I don't hear about you as an official, we say, praise the Lord, thank you, Jesus,
Yeah.
right? Because we don't want to, if we're catching somebody's eye, and it's usually not for the right reason,
Yeah.
right? And we don't want that.
Yeah. Are there what types of things can be catastrophic for us as officials, that might cause you to not utilize someone? I mean, is it more mechanical stuff? Is it personal interactions and stuff like that?
So personal interactions are a huge one, right? If I'm a jerk every time I deal with somebody, whether it be the coaching staff, the table, my partner, that's a huge red flag for me, right? The other thing is when we change decisions, especially when it comes to CRS, because 9 times out of 10, I shouldn't say all of them, but two systems in particular, I see what the second referee does. And if we're not doing that right and there's a pattern, then that is a huge concern for me.
Yeah. So how do we get that? You mentioned CRS, and that is just something that, I mean, it's an entire conversation, I'm sure, that we could
It
have.
sure is.
Um, how do we as officials get experience in using that? The review, and without it being a live match. Does that make sense? It seems like it's a catch
Oh, by all
22.
means. There is some training available. The PVO website, of course, has some
Yep.
in the IREF modules. But the reality is there is not a lot to um, before you do it for the first time. And I will be the admits. Ask me how many matches that I've done on CRS.
How many?
One.
Mm.
And ask me if I screwed up the first challenge.
Did you?
It still yanks my chain today, and this was probably what CRS is like 7 or 8 years ago,
Yeah.
right? But we as officials, one, it's great to strive for perfection, right? Because once you do, hang up your whistle because
Right.
you're never having a perfect match. I don't care what you think, but that's never going to happen.
No.
And it's good to strive for it, but we shouldn't be striving for it so much at the detriment of the game, right? We need to do things and we need to do them well. But not so much that we're focused on that's what our end goal is, right? I just want to have a great match where I've officiated evenly for everybody and that they go like, oh, who was that official on that match? Right? That should be everybody's end goal.
Yeah. No doubt about it. Do you feel like there's a perfectionist like trait in most of us as officials?
Did you say A-type personality? What did you say? I was confused. What did you say?
Do you feel like we're all mostly we want to be perfectionists?
I truly do believe that, right? Because why do you officiate? What's right? And of course, it's coming back to the game. There's a control factor, right? And of course, you want it to be, I mean, perfect. I mean, I don't know what other words we could technically use, but of course, you want a perfect match, right? You want everything to go right. You want to get every backward attack. You want to get, and this day with is ball handling, it is not non-existent, but it's really not as it was before, right? So it is the little things like the one time where I did need to blow my whistle, and did I get that call or did I not get it? Right. So yes, I would say that there, and everybody, there is that some, and the degree is completely different, right? Because it's all over the place, of perfectionism for sure.
What do you think separates an official who climbs to that level then and one that kind of plateaus or that kind of doesn't?
Sometimes it's the right place at the right time.
Mm.
I got to work my first P5 conference when I was officiating, all by accident. The match had been changed from a Saturday to a Friday. I had come back to work. This is when I lived in Austin many, many moons ago. Um, and I got a call from my hero mentor, Linda Fletcher, who has also passed. She goes, "What are you doing tonight?" I was like, "What do you mean?" I was like, "I'm just at work. School X needs an official. Can you make it?" I'm like, "Sure, but I'll be getting there about match time." And magically, that's how I got into P4 conference, right? So, and what makes the difference? It's about, there's so many factors, right? But it's about availability. It's about dependability. It's about how do your matches go, right? And are you constantly improving? Like, hey, I really want to see Kai again, or no, I don't want to see Carlos again. And so there's just a multitude of factors that go in on how people increase, right? Because the reality is what one coordinator may see as a golden child, another would be like, what are you smoking right now? Because we are not on the same page at all. And it happens, right?
Yeah. Do you think it's a play calling thing? Do you think it's a personality thing, mechanics? I mean, what are
It's
the
an overall package, right? Can someone, they call it the it factor, right? But what is the it factor? And the reality is the it is not always the same, right? For you, for me. It's truly an overall package. How do you adjudicate the game? And truly one of the biggest things for me is how well do you play with others? Right? And when I say play with others, I mean it both from a partner standpoint, coaches, table, all that is a huge part of making it. And then you have to do the easy part, right? You have to go tweet and go like this or like this, right? So that outsetting was kind of bad, but right. So it's just a whole package, and there's not one point you're like, hey, that is it, right? That is one thing. But the reality is, someone does something or someone sees something like, hey, you need to look at Kaya because I think he has potential to do good things.
so does
Or
it take
she,
you
right?
yeah, does it take you a long time to evaluate somebody? And I mean, how would we get on your radar? You know,
So no, it does not. Because the reality is, even when I'm a coach mentor for USA Volleyball, it does not take me a long time. Now, granted, I've been doing this forever again. Um, but I can tell in a short amount of time where I'm like, Kai, I think he has potential, or yeah, let's just bless his heart and say thank you, try
right.
again. Right. So it does not take me a long time. Now, what takes me a longer time is this will be my fifth season with the SEC, is making sure I have the right fit for that group. Right. And so I'm more hesitant with that group than I would say for my other four leagues. And not that they're not all important,
Right.
but the reality is there's just a different, and I will call it a stress factor on my part, right? Because the reality is when I assign you, I don't care what it is, whether it be my JUCO league all the way to Division One in the SEC, my name's on the line too, right? Because I put you in a place of trust to do whatever job that I've assigned you to do, right? And so the reality is a reflection of me as well. So I want to, especially at the big league, I want to make sure that I have the best people to do those matches. So, and that takes me, I am a little more hesitant on that group, but I'm all about giving people opportunities, right? Because raise your hand if you were never given an opportunity to officiate something that you had no business officiating,
Right.
right?
Right.
Exactly. You did not see my hand go up
Yeah.
because I have been super fortunate. Like I said, I got to officiate matches and like, oh, I had no business here. I
Right.
survived.
Right.
And hopefully I survived that I didn't cause any of my signers any heartache.
Yeah. Do you have officials that you use just as an R1? Like you're just like, hey, this person, I just want to use them as an R1, or I just want to use them as an R2.
Negatory, sort negatory. I am not a fan of position only. Um, because the reality is what happens if something changes and I need you as R2 or right. No, I'm not a fan of that. Now, are there better R1s and R2s? By all means. And it's just the nature of the beast. Some people shine more. We're not when they're on the stand. Some people are much better on the floor, and that's um, but everybody deserves an opportunity to do both,
Yeah.
right? Now,
Yeah.
what those numbers are can be all over the place.
Yeah. What did you prefer?
Um, I I definitely preferred being an R1, but I think I was a pretty decent R2, because the other side of it is I'm kind of a social creature, so I like interacting with people, right? And so as a first referee, you really don't have that option for the most part. So, but yes, we just have to be careful when we're second referees on what we're doing and how we're interacting so that it doesn't go look like you're being too chatty or too friendly with those people.
Yeah. So, what do you think makes you lose confidence in someone? Like, is there something that we do? Like, I mean, because we all make mistakes, right? I mean, like, it's just
Amen.
I mean, and I think as officials, we're so hesitant to card someone or come
But
back
why?
to
Why
because
are we hesitant to card somebody?
I mean, I
If
think
Coach Carlos is being a Jack Derriere, then Coach Carlos deserves a card because the reality is, what is a card? A yellow in particular. It is just a warning, right? So that does yank my chain because you should never be afraid at an institution to card somebody because that's your job. Your job is to facilitate and maintain what is going on, right?
yeah,
And so if you're hesitant because you're like, Coach X is super influential, I'm like, but the coordinator is the one who makes the assignments, right? And the reality is, I will have a conversation with Coach X. So just like I have a conversation with y'all, I'm truthful to the coaches too because I have to have that trust with them. And I will say, hey, Coach X, this is your fourth one. So really, is it every referee that I send you, or is it you? Um, I know I won't mention her name, but the very first year, um, in, in my when I had one of my leagues, I screwed up. I didn't do something I was supposed to do, right? Talked to my boss. I sent her an email. We talked. I went to go visit the school. The coach didn't give me the time of day, right? Like I was wasting her time. Um, Fast forward a little bit, she called me for something else. And I said, well, that's funny because my people tell me you officiate every night you coach. And that truly broke the situation for us. Like we were then great, right? So, but we all make mistakes. We all have to deal with them. And it's how we recover that is the biggest factor for me. Now, two things. Are you making constant mistakes? That's a first a red flag, right? Because if I'm having to say like or think like, what did Kai do this week? Why is he on my brain right now yet again? Right. But the reality is sometimes we have those one situation where like, oh my God, I blew that. But it's okay to own up, right? Because we've all made those mistakes. I can give you an example. Officiating close to home. The place was loud. I warned them about a positional fault. And I actually probably warned them too many times. Well, then I whistled it. The coach said, who? And I screamed because it had been loud. But of course, at that moment in time, it was quiet.
yeah,
And I was like, Lord Jesus, why? And so it's all situational. I told my boss at the time, like, hey, this is what I did. I'll be better about that. But it's all about recovery and learning from that situation and making yourself better from those situations. Now, if you're having them all the time, then we're like, hey, maybe we need to
then
think about something differently for you because there's a pattern here, right? And I tried to fix, but I can't always magically, there's no magic wand that says poof and it
well,
is fixed.
I would have hoped you'd have used that on me already. Um, so the thing I think that's really, you mentioned why are we apprehensive, and just for myself, I'm thinking, okay, what if this coach puts in, a negative review on me, right? I mean, then, I'm like, I, I I won't ever work
Stop
again.
right there. Stop right there for 1 second. Can you control others?
No.
Who can you control? Exactly. You can only control yourself. So you cannot go in with this fear factor because, of course, you want to be ideal. You want everybody to love you when you're official. But the reality is, you can only control yourself, right? How you showed up, how you're looking, how your mechanics are, how your whistle strength is, right? All these things. But the reality is, the bigger issue is, has Kaya given cards in the last 6 or 7 matches he's had? That's a flag, right? I'm not saying that you should never, because reality, there are people that they want a card or you need to give a card and just give it, right? Now, if it's constantly, like Kaya, what's going on? What bee is in your bonnet that someone says hello and you need to sanction, right?
Yeah. It's because, I mean, I remember carding a coach and I was pretty apprehensive about doing it. And, you're the assigner for this particular school. And I texted you and you said, oh, well, that coach is always getting, and I mean, I think we get super nervous about that, right? I mean, because we want to work. And if, we understand that, these reviews, quote unquote, they can influence you or
By
an assigner.
by all means, but the reality is, as I told you, that with every story, there are two sides, and
Yeah.
ideally, somewhere in the middle, they meet. And the reality is, if someone is getting carded, the reality is they're probably getting carded more than once. So you know who, me personally, is for my coaches, I can tell you, like, is a pain in the butt. He's probably going to get carded because he's going to be a sarcastic individual the whole time, or he's going to drop the F bomb. And as I shared with one of my former coaches, that is not a term of endearment. The F word is not a term of endearment, right? And you just
No.
have to deal with that. And the reality is, that's just some people's nature. But the reality is, we shouldn't let that behavior go unchecked,
Yeah.
right? They do evaluations, you do evaluations. I watch some matches. Actually, I watch a bunch of matches,
Sure.
but we shouldn't be afraid to do our job. I don't care how much influence the coach you believe that the coach has. At the end of the day, I, as the coordinator, am pushing the button to put person A or person B into those roles.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for easing our minds on that.
And can I just add one else about that?
Of course.
Don't ever be afraid. So, two things. And I tell all my people, I want to know about a sanction first from you. I never. So, oh, that's right. What's today's date? The 9th. My birthday is in 2 days.
Happy
So
birthday.
I like surprises on June 11th.
All right.
The other 364 days of the year, I'm not about surprises,
Not so much. Huh?
right? So just communicate. And it's okay. Now, when I say communicate, Carlos isn't your personal assistant to find everything. You need to find a friend or a mentor to help you out for the little things. But if it comes to my signing stuff and you sanction Coach X, I want to know immediately so that when Coach X calls me or texts me that night in particular, I was like, what are you talking about? And so the funny thing is, when a coach in particular will say, hey, um, why did I get a card? My first response is, well, what did you do? Right? Because usually there's a action and a consequence, right? Consequence is a card. Um, and of course they're kicking back, but the reality is something had to happen for a sanction to be given, right? And sometimes it's our fault. Let's not
Yeah.
be confused, right?
Yeah.
We contribute too much that then we have to sanction. And
Yeah.
that's something also that has to be addressed, right? Because we don't want that to happen, but at the same time, we need to be in control.
Yeah. So, when you watch an event, are you any sports event? Are you watching the officials too, or how do?
So in my baby years as a coordinator, when I had no business being a Division I coordinator because it was a right time, right place. That's how I got my first gig. Um, yes, it's always watching. And the reality is, I don't care what sports like. So I watch the Women's College World Series for softball. I'm all about postseason type stuff. I like to see how people interact and what they do. For volleyball, for the longest time, I could not look at the game, right? And I know that sounds kind of funny, but I was like, what is Kaya, the first referee, doing? Or what is Carlos, the second referee, doing? I'm like, what are the line judges doing, right? Now, I've kind of tapered that, but if I'm in a role where my job is to evaluate, then it's much more focused on the referees. But I do try to see it in the bigger picture of what is going on.
Yeah.
Right. But yes, no, I watch almost every sport, like the NBA championships, because go Spurs go. I was like, hello. Um, and Victor yesterday, he threw some guy down and he didn't magically get a foul. I'm like, whoa, whoa, whoa. I was like,
Yeah.
go Spurs go, but
Yeah.
that craziness should have been a foul. I'm just gonna
That
throw it out there.
probably should have been something.
Yeah.
Um, so talk to me about the pipeline and ways to improve officials. Is there a quick way to do that, or
So two things, right? I'm only one person, right? And my staff is probably about 700 to 800 in totality.
geez,
But then I know people, right? And if you ask me, do I know every single one of my staff members? No, I do not. I wish I did, but it's not the truth. Um, but I know people. And so if someone says, I'm just going to take from your area, Michelle Prater. Michelle Prater says, hey, you need to see person X. I was like, okay, great. That's good to know. And especially, we need the young people. Right, we need them. Our average age of our national level officials is well into the 50s, if not mid to late 50s, right? So we need the young people because they need to take the reins and start progressing. But at the end of the day, nothing beats practice, 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 and more practice. And so the only thing that I fault the young kids for is they don't like to do a lot of that practice. Now, I'm not saying you have to do it for 10 years before you get to play with others, but you
yeah.
do need to put in some time to get the reward, if that makes
Yeah.
sense.
Would you rather have a young official that you can kind of, mold and they're going to make certain mistakes? Or, I mean, would you rather have a veteran who you kind of know uh, their peaks and valleys a little bit?
And can we have both?
Um, I'm sure you
So, I'm all about longevity, but the reality is we can't dismiss our veterans as well, right? Because we need them. We need them to help make, excuse me, those youngsters better. Because I can only do so much as one person, but if you're doing something and I'm doing something and person X is doing something and person Y, then we can bring our cadre up, right? At the end of the day, we should all be trying to make each other better. And unfortunately, there's a lot of me mentality that there is enough volleyball for everybody to go around, that there should be a piece of the pie for someone somewhere, right? And so I don't know if a youngster is better because sometimes they're a lot more work. And where I am currently, a lot of work causes me a lot of stress. So I have enough already. So I'm not trying to usually add to my plate. But if I see someone who I'd like, hey, they have potential, I think they can. Because the other thing that I don't want to happen, especially with the youngsters, is how we choose mentors is very perplexing to me, right? Um, and granted, our top officials are very busy. I do think they do need to give back more, right? Because they did not get where they are all by themselves. I did not become a Division I coordinator just because I was wonderful. As I said, Linda Fletcher was a mentor of mine. She helped me get where I am today, right? So we don't do things by ourselves. I know some people do. I might have thought that when I was younger, like a fool. But the reality is, there are people helping you. And I think there's sometimes you don't even realize that people are helping you behind the scenes.
Yeah. What about diversity? How can we um, help solve some of those concerns?
I think President 47 said we don't have DEI anymore. I'm sorry, this is not a political
Yeah.
show.
Yeah. Thank
No,
you.
it's a huge factor, right? The reality is, collegiately, it's a women's sport, right? Again, I've learned a lot in my 20 plus years as a Division I coordinator. It would have never crossed my mind at a championship to have a woman, right? It would never have. Now that is a factor. I am concerned on what message we're sending out there, who is out there. There's just a whole big picture that makes it whole, right? And so no one should ever get in somewhere should be put in a position that's not going to be successful, right? But the reality is we do need to push for inclusion of both minorities and women. And that's a huge void in our sports that we in general need to do better to make it more inclusive for those individuals.
Yeah, I mean, how do you think I guess at the and I guess to me I think most of the things have to happen at the lower levels, right? I mean, we've got to start looking at um some of the things we're looking at are players. You know, how can we grab a collegiate volleyball player that's just starting and try to get them involved in being an R2 or being they've probably done some R2ing in club. So how can we bring them forward to help the game, the sport, rather than turning to coaching, which is I think what a lot of people do. But I don't know if it's something that we can do as USAV or as our local high school associations,
Well,
NCAA, PAVO.
think of this part. So the junior world, which you're involved with, there are teams, and more teams. I forget Easter weekend. I forget were there seven, eight national qualifiers across the country, right?
Unbelievable.
All those players do not go to be collegiate athletes.
No.
And so if you can answer this question, how do we get that piece so they get involved? You'd have the $1 million answer. Because there truly is a disconnect somewhere there. Because granted, some of them come to college, they play, and then they want to give back, whether it be coaching or officiating. But I think there's a huge piece we lose from juniors to when they go to college, right? Because not all of them play.
Yeah.
So if we could find a magical solution how to bridge that gap, I think we would be better off. Because, people say that there's a shortage of officials. I don't necessarily buy that there's a shortage per se, like people are leaving, and granted, people are leaving our profession, right? But the reality is there's just so much more,
Mm.
right? So I don't think the actual number of referees are decreasing. I think they're actually increasing. But the reality is the opportunity for them to officiate is so much larger.
Yeah. There's just so many more events, so many more
Correct.
matches every year. The sport's just growing incredibly, right?
Yes, exactly. Which is good for all of us, right?
Yeah.
Because practice makes you better at the end of the day. Because when I was a baby referee, I'd be weekend, like every weekend. And right now, if you ask me to go fishing, I was like, can I do one match and then call it a day? Right. But there's a difference in where I am now as opposed to when I started. Right. And so, like most people will know my wife, Rachel. So she is still gaga goo goo for volleyball. And I do too. I love it. Let's not be confused. I love volleyball because, again, it's given me many opportunities. But our levels, when I say levels, I'm going to say our interests because sometimes I just like to stay home,
Yeah.
right? And so in my younger days, when I first started, I was like, oh no, I need to be at place X, I need to play
Right.
place Y, A, B, C. And now I'm like, can I just see my roses, please? Because I haven't seen them in a while. So
Yeah, I mean, I don't have a match. I need to go watch a match, right? I mean, someone I know is working. I'm going to go watch them. I mean, or see if there's what I can watch on TV. I mean, the ability to watch matches now is it's unbelievable. I think most collegiate matches are now televised, right, or recorded.
dreamed of some sort, right? And you bring up I'm glad you brought this up, especially from the evaluation side. Like when you're getting a new certification, please get past the fact that someone is watching. Grandma could be watching on a stream, and I magically like, hey, did you see Kyle? I was like, Lord Jesus, what did he do now? Right? I'm like, but the reality is someone is always watching, right? And so we as officials need to get past it, right? We need to do our job. And of course, we shouldn't be the show, but we need to get past the fact that someone's watching or someone's evaluating, right? Because the reality is I could be so my people are shocked when I'm at home on a Thursday and I'm like, hey, why didn't you give that coach a card when she said an expletive to you? I'm like, there's no excuse. I'm like, you saw that? You never know when I'm watching, right?
Yeah.
Or an administrator sends me an email like, hey, what happened to our game last night, right? And they may not have a clue on what the sport of volleyball is. So someone is always watching, and we need to get past that whole deal of like, oh my gracious, or if I write something down, you don't know what I'm writing down? Maybe it's my
Right.
Chinese order for dinner. Maybe it's right.
Right.
You just never know. And so, unfortunately, we get in our own heads. We're like, oh my God, that was bad. You know what? Maybe it was bad, but we have to do our job and not worry about those externals because, again, we have no control over that.
Yeah, I mean, it's really nerve-wracking though. That whole evaluation process is
It
definitely,
really is it. It's just
oh
going
my
like
gosh.
this, going like I'm just saying, right? I mean,
But
and
but
granted,
think
this
about
did.
it, Carlos. Carlos, think about it. Like, I mean, me as a, I mean, and I'm not a young official any longer. But I mean, I just imagine, and it's still even now, if you or Ann Pufall or someone, Michelle, if Michelle is watching my match. I mean, and I've worked with her. I've had the blessing of doing. I still am nervous. You know what I mean? Like it
We
just
have
is.
to get past that,
Yeah.
and we have to realize, especially in those moments, like say when you got to work with Michelle, the reality is you're just two referees. I can give you an example. I don't know, it's probably been 7, 8 years ago now. I had exhausted all my officials, and I never work in any of my leagues. Like that is a big no-no. Like
Mm.
maybe other coordinators do it, but no, I do not do that. Um, and I'd exhausted everybody. I tried to move people. I tried to make and it didn't. So Carlos got to go work D3, right? Um, and the match was just say it was at 10 o'clock. Well, I thought it was at 10:30, right? And I didn't look. And so I sent an email to my whole crew, blah, blah, blah. I'll be there at 9:30. Not one of those fools, not one, said, did you mean you were going to be here at 9? And so I didn't say anything because something wasn't sitting right with me the night before. So I went and checked. I was like, oh my gracious. I was like, I was going to be late.
Mm.
And so when I got there, I did rip every single one of them because the reality is when we're refereeing, we are referees. Now, granted, I may have this other role, but when refereeing, because if I screw up, the team has screwed up, right? Not just Carl, the team. And so we need to be successful as a team. And the other thing that I think needs to happen is that it's okay to say in a debrief, like, hey, what happened with that back row attack? What happened? And not be like, oh, I can't say anything because we have to make each other better, right? And if you're afraid to communicate, because, and I'm just gonna throw Michelle under the bus, it's fine, it won't hurt my feelings, but she's great, right? And if you cannot tell your partner, like, hey, what happened there in an honest dialogue, now, granted, it's not about blah, 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 right? It's about, like, hey, what happened here? What were you seeing? Because I think we might have missed something. Now, and that then it takes on Michelle to say, like, hey, yeah, you're right. I missed it. Or no, I was like, I was all over that. I clearly had her back, or whatever the case may be, right? But you have to be able to have that open dialogue. And the reality is, especially in debriefs, it has to be a dialogue. And again, just do your job. And I completely understand, right? You get to my hero, Jamie Littman, who was on the national rating team from Austin area. I think he's moved to New York now as a retired from officiating. But I get it because when I work with Jamie, I want to be rock star, superstar. But the reality is almost 9 times out of 10, I screwed up because I was trying to impress him too much when I just should have been focused on doing the simple things that, over and over and over again so that I wasn't him. Because then he'd be like, hey, what'd you do here? Why'd you miss this? And I was like, oh my gracious.
Yeah. Do you think we do a good job of giving feedback as officials to each other? I mean, do you?
No,
Yeah.
no. You want to be all warm and fuzzy. Everybody was great. Have a good evening. And the reality is there's a fine line between giving each other feedback and not being like you are the match evaluator, right? But I do think that we don't do a service to ourselves as officials when we're not talking about the important things that happen during a match. And so, but we need to be able to have those conversations. But again, you can be a not nice person when you're delivering this message because you need to when we're in those debriefs we need to have an open conversation about like hey what about this what about that because reality nothing is ever like everybody did a great job have a good evening right there's always something that we can work on and we need to be able to have I don't care who you're working with right you need to be able to have those honest conversations.
Yeah. I mean, I definitely believe that, and I don't know if it's just we as officials have changed so much that that bare knuckle feedback, we're not, if we're even saying the things that are wrong anymore. You know what I mean? It's just so, um,
Right.
fluffy, and you know what I mean. I don't know if
No, I
I'm
agree.
making any
But
sense.
there's a way to present that so that it's to the point, but again, you're not being a jerk when you're saying that or questioning what happened,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
Because
yeah.
then you don't want to work with that person.
Yeah. So I mean, if do you want officials to email you and say, "Hey, Carlos, I just got this, my national patch. Would you consider me on staff?" Do you want us to solicit and ask you to watch us, or send you film or tape or anything like that of a
No,
match?
I watch way too much tape, so I never want to see film.
Yeah.
But the reality is, I'll speak for myself and I'll speak on both ends because there are some coordinators who like, I never want to hear from anyone.
Yeah.
If I want you, I will get you.
Right.
But what Yanks, I have no issue with that.
You don't.
Right. If you send me an email like, hey, I just got my national rating, blah, blah, blah. But don't send me just because you got a national rating and you don't live anywhere in my footprints. Right. Because reality and the big cheese, the SEC, is a completely different beast. I can tell you who I want to. You don't have to come to me for that fee, right? I know I'm like, ooh, somebody in North Carolina is like doing great, right? Or someone in California that I need to be thinking about. But for my smaller leagues, it's a whole different story because like for my other Division One conferences, they're all geographical. So if you
Yeah.
live in Georgia or if you live in Texas and I don't know about you, right? But the other thing that I would include with them, like, hey, I'm relatively close to schools ABC, right? If you are in Alaska and you send me an email, I'm like, why are you wasting my time? Right?
Right.
Because I could not do anything for you unless you were the rock star superstar and I could get you into the SEC,
Right.
right? Because I don't have an unlimited budget, but I have a budget that would allow that person to travel, right? And my other leagues don't afford me that opportunity.
Yeah. So, how many new officials would you add, like, each year, do you think, to that Power Four conference? Like, are you taking
So
officials out
this
of that
year,
conference too? I mean,
about me, some people get retired
yeah,
because it's the nature of the beast, right? Because um, we officiate right just like the bell curve, right? You're up, 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 and then at some point, what comes up must go down,
yeah,
right? Um, and so we start slowing down, right? It's nothing personal, right? It's not Carlos made some magical revelation.
right,
It's just the nature of the beast. We get slower, our reaction time gets slower. Um, like me personally, I went to the eye doctor. I don't have my new ones on because they were too glary. But in my right eye, I have some stupid floater. I'm like, I am not that old that I should have this nonsense be going on,
right,
right? So the reality is, all of those are factors, and sometimes you have to say thank you, and you move on. And let's not be confused. Is that hurtful? By all means, but it is part of the game. And because I don't work for you as the official, I work for the conference. I have 11 bosses, right? And so it is my job to do what I believe is best for the league. And so this year I believe I brought in two referees, two? Yeah, I believe two. And that cadre is very small. I have 43 referees in the SEC for 16 institutions.
How many did
And
you have when you first started, Carlos? Do you
um,
remember?
It was probably more. I probably over the years, I trimmed several at the beginning because I was like, oh my gracious, how is this individual? And the reality is we all have opinions about things, right? And so I have an opinion about something. Um, whether I use you or not, that's completely my prerogative, right? So
Right.
it was probably there's probably maybe about 10 more total, right? And that has fluctuated because I've added people, taken
Yeah.
people out. So, but I've been at 43 for the last, I don't know, 3 years or so. And I could use a few more, but again, that is the baby. And so I'm very particular about who gets to officiate the baby.
Yeah. Who can hold the baby, right?
Correct, exactly.
Um, what what's one thing that you found out, I guess, that you wish you would have known at the beginning of your assigning and officiating?
One thing.
What's one thing you'd tell that young Carlos that started officiating or assigning?
That you will never have of people's availability correct.
Oh yeah, yeah. Now, does
Um,
that makes you mad, right? I mean, it like
so what yanks my chain is that I give you matches only knowing that you already have something, right? I don't care that you block. That's neither here nor because you are an independent contractor. You get to choose which matches you take or don't take. If you take everything I assign from you, I say, praise the Lord, thank you, Jesus, good job. Hi.
yeah,
But you're an independent person. You get to do what you want to do. Now, when I assign that only then to come back, that's what yanks my chain. And more importantly, especially when we're in season, because when you get a match in season, 9 times out of 10, there's been a change, right? For whatever reason, the referee can't make it, the school changed the time, someone got sick, blah, blah, blah. So when I cannot depend on your availability, then I think bad thoughts in my head. Sometimes I voice them to my wife. Um,
yeah.
but the reality is the problem children are the problem children always. And the funny thing is they don't think it's anything about them. I'm like,
Mhm.
why do I have to tell you the same thing? Why do I have to tell you that you need to contact your partner? Why do I need to tell you you need to have your availability up to date? Right? To me, those are just professional things that we should do. And if you get a match from, I'm just going to say Marsha,
Yeah.
then the first thing I should then go do is go block them for Carlos because I am no longer available. Right? At the end of the day. So and please don't tell me, oh, there's multiple sites. I don't care.
Right.
I don't care, right? We have to take some onus on the professional side, right? Because if you were doing this as a volunteer or if I was paying you peanuts, now define what peanuts is, then I could get it. But we are making decent money as Division One in particular. And Division Two isn't doing too bad either, right? Um, but we need to own that professional piece. And raise your hand if your availability was never correct. You see my hand was not going up,
And
right?
mine
Been there, done
mine
that.
went down lower. So
But you should never be a problem child more than once, right?
mm,
Because I will think bad thoughts about you for probably a day. And the funny thing is, referees are the worst because I try not to remember bad traumatic things in my life, right? But then I'll be like, well, remember that? I was like, no, Crackhead, I do not remember last year. So why did you bring it up? Why did you bring it up? Once it's in the past, we let it go. Right now, but again, if you're a repeated problem child, that's where I have some issues. And that might affect your scheduling. I'm just gonna throw it out there. Because like, do I trust him? Do I not trust him? And once the trust is broken, it is very hard to get that back. So
yeah, I do know that. And you know, as good of a referee as you can be, you know, losing an assigner's trust is really, really
you could be the
hard.
best one known to mankind, but if I can't depend on you to do your part, I'm like, truly, what good are you? I'm like, go ahead, go work for someone else because I just cannot, um, just can't deal with it.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, Carlos, I've got about 22 other questions I want to ask you, but I know we're running up against a time thing here.
It's probably that
And
10 minutes at the beginning. I'm just gonna throw it out there.
I know you gotta you gotta take that into account too, but I want to get 10 more minutes later on in the next session, if you don't mind,
Sure.
coming back, please.
Yeah.
It's been a pleasure to kind of just you know, pick your brain and figure some of this stuff out and share a lot of what your insights are and your thoughts are around these things. So it's really important.
Hey, no, it's a pleasure to be here, and I will leave you with two things that are important. Again, no one is ever bigger than the game. I don't care who you are. No one, no one, no one. And the other thing is about helping make our cadre better. That should be everyone's goal, right? I don't care whether you're young, old. We as a group, because they don't remember Kaya, the great referee, right? They only remember Carlos was awful, right? So it should be our goal always to make our people better. And there's more than enough volleyball because you're like, oh my goodness, if I give this to Kaya, then what? No, if you're doing what you need to do, the sun will shine upon you too.
Yeah, I believe that. I mentioned, with Michelle, when I got my junior national patch, there was a letter and it said, your only job right now is to go back to your region, and when you're abroad, share whatever you've learned and give it away. Do not keep it. Like, this is not a secret society. I mean, we want you to help improve and help your region and everybody you meet get better. And I think this
Exactly.
this volleyball family is pretty unique in that regard. And that's something that I want to talk to you about, potentially trying to create that mentality and culture in other places, because I think it's really important.
Sounds good. Again, thank you for having me.
Thanks a lot, Carlos. I appreciate it really a lot. And I'll see you again very soon.
Sounds great.
Thank you,
Have
sir.
a good summer.
You too. Oh, I'm going to close this out and just say Carlos made something really clear. Uh, Advancement isn't really random, it's about standards, consistency, and growth over time. Our pipeline doesn't survive on just hope. It's professionalism, mentorship, and accountability. Officiating's the infrastructures, not an afterthought. And there are clear expectations before the whistle, support during the match, and follow through after. It's what all of our assignments and our sports deserve at every level. So, Carlos, I appreciate you supporting us and all you do to help us get better as a cadre. So,
No, thank you.
thank you very much. We'll see you soon.
Okay, take care.